Welcome to the Wind Up with Will. I'm your host, Will, here, and today we're going to be talking about the National Baseball Hall of Fame candidates this year. Who's on the ballot? Who was on it last year? What were the votes like last year? Who has a chance this year? Who I would put on my ballot? And then later on, we're going to get to the NFL playoffs this weekend. So, kicking off, we're going to start out with before I get into that, see, I'm wearing my Butler Bulldogs shirt. They beat Marquette this past week, number 11 team in the nation, only to play horrible today against Xavier. But besides the point, getting back into baseball. So on the 2024 Baseball Hall of Fame ballot, we've got some new coming players this year. I'll go through the entire list, and then I'll mention who are the newcomers. So on this year's list, we have Bobby Abreu, Jose Bautista, Carlos Beltran, Adrian Beltre, Mark Burley, Bartolo Colon, Adrian Gonzalez, Todd Helton, Matt Holliday, Torrey Hunter, Andrew Jones, Victor Martinez, Joe Mauer, Andy Pettit, Brandon Phillips, Manny Ramirez, Jose Reyes, Alex Rodriguez, Francisco Rodriguez, also known as K-Rod, Jimmy Rollins, Gary Sheffield, James Shields, Chase Utley, Omar Vizquel, Billy Wagner, and David Wright, the captain of the New York Mets. So that's the full list of this year's ballot. They're going to be announcing who is elected on January 23rd, so just actually 7 days from now. So next Tuesday is when that announcement is. So I did this video just in time. But the newcomers on this year's list are Jose Bautista, Adrian Beltre, Bartolo Colon, Adrian Gonzalez, Matt Holliday, Victor Martinez, Joe Mauer, Brandon Phillips, Jose Reyes, James Shields, Chase Utley, and David Wright. So those are the newcomers on this year's list. They're first time eligible for the Hall of Fame ballot. Now, if you've never followed Major League Baseball's Hall of Fame, really it's the National Baseball Hall of Fame. If you've never followed it before, if a player gets less than 5% of the vote, they're off the ballot. I don't really think that this is fair. Also, you can only vote for 10 players. That's probably fair. Players are also only eligible for 10 years once they're on the ballot, meaning that if they're not elected within 10 years, their only hope is to get put on or voted in by a Veterans Committee later on. I think the NBA and maybe NFL have something similar where past players that get looked over can get put in later down the line. I think 10 years is too short. There's maybe another time I'll do a video on all the issues with the Hall of Fame ballot. Getting off my soapbox there, I'm going to go through players who are likely to get in first. We'll just go down the list from what we have. So Bobby Abreu, a solid player, really underlooked and underrated career. Like until the Mets got him his last year in Major League Baseball, I'd maybe heard of him, didn't really know that much about him. But looking up his stats, he actually had a really good career. And of those good Phillies teams, I guess he was off the Phillies by the time that they were competing for the World Series. He actually had a really good career. He had nearly 2,500 hits. He had nearly 300 home runs, 1,300 RBIs, and was a lifetime 291 hitter, as well as stealing 400 bases. He's a very underlooked guy for the Hall of Fame. I guess before I go down the list, I should mention what the voting was last year. So last year, the people that this was the full ballot last year. So the last year, Scott Rowland was the only player elected in by the voters. Fred McGriff also went in by the Veterans Committee. Fred McGriff really was overlooked for many years. He should have gone in a long time ago. But Scott Rowland was the only guy voted in last year with 76.3% of the vote. To get in, you have to have 75% of the vote. Babe Ruth never even got 100%, and we've only ever had, I believe, one player, maybe two, have 100%. Mariano Rivera had 100%, and I think Derek Jeter might have had 100%. It's just crazy that some guys do not vote for certain players for some reason. It's got to be in the politics or something. But so Scott Rowland was the only one elected in last year with over 76% of the vote. Todd Helton got 72%, just short. Billy Wagner got 68% of the vote. Him and Todd Helton had jumps last year. Andrew Jones also jumped in the voting percentage. He got 58%. Gary Sheffield only got 55%. Carlos Beltran only got 46%. Jeff Kent, his final year on the ballot, was 46%. Alex Rodriguez got only 35%. Manny Ramirez, 33%. Omar Vizquel, 19.5%. Andy Pettitte, 17%. Bobby Abreu surprisingly got 15% of the vote. Good player, had a good career, and got 15% of the vote there. More so than the guy behind him that I really think will and probably should get in is Jimmy Rollins. He only got 12.9% of the vote, a former teammate of Bobby. Mark Burley only got 10% of the vote. Francisco Rodriguez, also known as K-Rod, he only got 10.8% of the vote, same exact percentage as Mark Burley. And Torrey Hunter, a guy that I would really love to get in, had just under 7% of the vote. And there's a bunch of other guys who either didn't get any votes or got like one vote. I won't go through them because they're not on this year's ballot. All of those guys except Jeff Kent that I just named are on this year's ballot again. Of those guys of last year that I think have a strong chance of either getting in this year or in future years, I think Todd Helton gets in this year. He had a great career out in Colorado, and I know people will say that Colorado and the high altitude benefited him hitting wise. But if you look at his home and away stats, his away stats are almost better. Sure, I think the batting average is a lot better at home, but his overall stats, his splits between home and away, isn't that horrible. Sure, there is a drop off, but it's still a really good stat line away. And he was a great defensive first baseman. He was in conversation for an MVP one year. I think he won a batting title, I believe. The guy had a great career. He nearly got voted in last year. He's going to go in this year. He's just a few votes short, and he's going to get in. Most of the time when we see guys make that jump and just get just short, they usually go in the next year. So Todd Helton, I think, is going in this year. Billy Wagner, he was just 7% short last year with 68%. I think he'll go in. He's well overdue as well with Todd Helton. Hall of Fame reliever, pitched for the Mets for a short time. He will go in, but he'll go in as an Astro. He will go in as an Astro, and Todd Helton will go in with the Rockies, the only team he ever played for. Andrew Jones had a jump last year at 58%. I don't know if he'll go in this year. I think he might just be Todd Helton was what Todd Helton was last year, where he gets to over 70%, but falls just short of 75. But lining up good for Andrew Jones to get in eventually. Arguably the greatest defensive center fielder of all time. The only reason he's not in already is when he got bad at the end of his career, he got really bad. He went from one of the best players in the game to no one ever talking about him. He went from, say, I don't know, Kobe Bryant levels of talent in baseball to all of a sudden playing Meta World Peace in his last year. A guy that just no one knew, talked about, just vanished. And he fell off. That's what hurt him so much, because in his peak, he was arguably the greatest center fielder of all time. Defensive wise, and he hit over 400 career home runs. I think he was not far off from 500. The guy had a phenomenal career, but he fell off quickly, so that kind of hurts him. Gary Sheffield got 55% of the vote. I don't see him getting in. He's towards the end of his time on the ballot. I don't know how many more years he has on the ballot. I don't see him getting in. He has ties to steroids. I think he admitted to doing steroids or taking some kind of steroid cream at some point. He's not going to get in. Carlos Beltran, I believe last year was his first year on the ballot. He only got 46.5% of the vote. And I think that's because of the cheating scandal with the Astros. I think if it wasn't for that, he would have had a higher percentage last year and probably gets in this year or next year. I do think he'll eventually get in. I think the steroid scandal with the Astros is going to delay that. Jeff Kent, that was his last year on the ballot. If he wants to get in, um, he's going to need the committee. I think he should be in. Had a great career as a second baseman, greatest offensive second baseman of all time, hands down. Outside of maybe like, was it Honus Wagner, I believe that, or Honus Wagner, Roger Hornsby, one of them played second base. Outside of them, he's the greatest offensive second baseman of all time. Guy was phenomenal. Had the most home runs of any second baseman of all time. So I think he should go in. Alex Rodriguez, steroids. He's not going in. Doesn't have a chance. Manny Ramirez, steroids. No chance. He's not going in. But let me just pull up the actual ballot of this year, and because after those top guys, I don't. Let me go through. Let me just go through the actual ballot first instead of looking at last year's. So Bobby Abreu, as I mentioned, I think he's a good player, had a great career, deserves a look. I'm glad he's getting votes. He's one of those guys I'm kind of on the fence on. I probably wouldn't vote for him right now, but I do think he deserves to be recognized somehow, or at least acknowledged, maybe get put in later on. Jose Bautista, love the guy, great home run hitter. I don't think he's getting in. I think he'll get a decent amount of votes, but I don't think he'll go in. He just didn't have a long enough career, and he didn't become a superstar or even a star in the game till he was like 30. So that really hurts him that he didn't become a good player till like where most players are hitting their prime, where they've already had a bunch of decent years before that. So he's not going in. Carlos Beltran, as I mentioned, will probably go in later on. Arguably one of the greatest switch hitters of all time, but I think the Astros cheating scandal is going to hold him back a few more years. Adrian Beltre, another first timer on the ballot, just like Jose Bautista, except Beltre is a top five third baseman of all time. This guy was phenomenal. Won Gold Gloves, competed for MVPs, was a phenomenal player for the Texas Rangers. He started out having a great career with the Dodgers, and then once he ended up with Seattle, his power went away. That ballpark just did not benefit him in any way and towards the home runs. He goes to the Red Sox. All of a sudden, he's a good player. Ends up with the Rangers, and has a Hall of Fame career there. So he's a guy that's going in. I think of all the guys on the ballot, I think he's going to get the highest percentage of anyone, possibly over 90%. He's a Hall of Famer, just plain and simple. He's a slam dunk candidate there. Mark Burley had a good career, won a World Series through a perfect game, I believe, and I think a no hitter later on. It had a really good career. Will go probably in the White Sox Hall of Fame. Probably have his number retired by the White Sox, but I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. Yes, his ERA is similar to Jack Morris, who went in the Hall of Fame a few years ago. But Jack Morris was arguably the best pitcher of the 80s. He was also arguably the greatest postseason pitcher of all time. I know Mark Burley won a World Series with the White Sox, but I don't think he did anything spectacular in that or in any other playoff run that sets him apart from anyone else or makes him a Hall of Famer. I think he belongs in the Hall of Very Good. Mark Burley had a very good career, very good player. I like Mark Burley, but he's not a Hall of Famer. Um, Bartolo Colon, another first year player. Love Bartolo Colon. Another former Met. Had one of the greatest moments in baseball history with a home run as a pitcher. against San Diego on in 2016. That was actually prom night. I remember that. I was at prom and got notified on my phone that he'd hit a home run. I was super stoked. Um, Great player, had a really great career, won a Cy Young, but there's a couple things I have against him. His ERA is over 4, and he got caught doing steroids. He's not a Hall of Famer. I love him, love Big Sexy. That's his nickname, but he's not a Hall of Famer. Adrian Gonzalez is another first timer. If you asked me probably 10 years ago about him, I would have said he probably is a Hall of Famer just because of the team he was on. He was playing successful for the Dodgers, but he didn't finish out strong. He kind of fell off towards the end. If he could have kept how he was playing until his late 30s, possibly to 40, maybe he has a chance. But he just fell off too soon. Really good career, but belongs in the Hall of Very Good, unfortunately, not the Hall of Fame. Todd Helton, as I mentioned, he's going to go in. Great defensive first baseman, phenomenal hitter, and I don't like the slander of, well, he played with Colorado. Okay, well, where's the slander towards home run hitters who play for the Yankees? Of, oh, well, they play in Yankee Stadium, so it's an easy home run for. It's easy for Aaron Judge to hit 60 home runs there. You don't hear it for any other part. You don't hear it for that. You don't hear it for Cincinnati, which is a small ballpark. You don't hear about, well, it's easy to pitch in AT&T Park. It's so big you don't give up home runs. You don't hear that for like any other field, any other team. It's unfair to the players who play for Colorado. They still go out there and they still hit the ball. They do what they're told to do. They perform at a high level. He's a Hall of Famer. He's close to getting in last year. He's going in this year. Matt Holliday. I think Matt Holliday is another first timer. He's a guy I really like. I don't think he will go in. I think he's had a really good career, but probably not a Hall of Fame career. You got Torrey Hunter and Andrew Jones, as I said before. Andrew Jones, one of the best center fielders of all time. He'll either go in this year or probably next year. Should go in. Torrey Hunter is a defensive wizard in the outfield. The fact that this guy doesn't get more talked about, I think, is unfortunate. Over 300 career home runs. I think he's a lifetime 280 or 290 hitter. If I can pull up his stats real quick. Let's see. 277 hitter, so not great, but not bad either. 9-time Gold Glove winner, 2-time Silver Slugger, 5-time All Star. Over nearly 2,500 hits, nearly 1,300 runs, nearly 1,400 RBIs, nearly 200 stolen bases. I think the Gold Gloves should get him in my own opinion, but based on how the voters vote and based on how voters have voted in previous times, I don't think he's going to go in. I think it might be a veterans committee down the road that gets him in. Victor Martinez, a really good player on some good Detroit teams, but not a Hall of Famer. Joe Mauer, first year on the ballot. I'm actually curious. Um, I'm actually curious how the vote is going to go for Joe Mauer because the guy won some batting title. The guy could hit, and he was a great defensive catcher. Now, towards the end of his career, he became a first baseman. But let me see if I can pull up his stats real quick. He was an MVP, a 6-time All Star, 3-time Gold Glove, 5-time Silver Slugger, 3-time batting title winner. 3-time batting title winner as a catcher, one of the hardest positions to play. Now, the offensive stats, especially after he stopped being catcher, kind of fall off. But still had over 2,000 hits, 1,000 runs, only 900 RBIs, but he a lot of times batted second. Um, not always had players behind him. He's a lifetime 300 hitter, 388 career on base percentage, MVP, 3-time batting title winner. He's going to go in as a Hall of Famer. And it's just a question of when. Is it going to be this year, or is it going to be a few years next year, or a few years down the line? But he should go in eventually. Andy Pettitte, steroids, not going in. Brandon Phillips, a guy I really like, probably not going in. I would think he's probably going to get below 5%. Guy was, if you never saw him play, greatest defensive second baseman I've ever seen play. He should go in my opinion, but I don't see that happening. Probably by some veterans committee down the line that actually acknowledges how great of a defensive player he was. Will maybe put him in someday. Manny Ramirez, steroids, not going in. Jose Reyes, another former Met, great career. Unfortunately, due to like injuries and sometimes not playing well, having to set out like 40 games due to domestic violence. I think he's probably not going in, but he had a great career. Lifetime 280 hitter, won a batting title, had over 500 career stolen bases, four-time All-Star, great defensive shortstop. Didn't win a Gold Glove, but he did win a Silver Slugger. But it's hard to win a Gold Glove at shortstop. There's a lot of good defensive shortstops out there, but he was a good defensive shortstop, and I think he should go in. And obviously I'm a Mets fan, so I'm going to be a little biased there, but he did have a great career. Not many players, let alone shortstops, have a career like that. So I would put him in. I don't think he's going to get the votes. I think he'll get more votes than someone like Brandon Phillips, but probably not going in. I'd love to see him go in, though. Alex Rodriguez, steroids, not going in. Francisco Rodriguez, K Rod. He's a guy that I think should go in. I don't know if he'll get the votes. I think him bouncing around a lot and having some bad moments here and there probably hurt him. But his stats are really good. His ERA isn't as good as a Hall of Fame or as another reliever like Billy Wagner, someone else who's on this ballot here. But I think K Rod should be considered for the Hall of Fame. Jimmy Rollins. Jimmy Rollins is a guy who should go in. He should. I'm just going to say it. I know as a Mets fan that's hard to say because the guy terrorized the Mets for years, played for our rival Phillies, but he's a guy who should go in. He won an MVP. Somehow he was only a three-time All-Star. What hurts him is being only a three-time All-Star and like a 264 career hitter. Now, winning an MVP, I think, gets a little precedent over that. Winning a World Series, being a good shortstop, and let me pull up his other accomplishments. He won a Silver Slugger, four-time Gold Glove at short. I just mentioned how hard it is to win that for a shortstop. Part of the reason that Jose Reyes didn't win more, or part of the reason Jose Reyes didn't win any. Won four Gold Gloves, three-time All-Star, somehow only three-time All-Star. Won the 2008 World Series, Silver Slugger, MVP. Nearly had 2,500 career hits, over 1,400 runs, only 900 RBIs, but over 200 career home runs for a shortstop, 470 stolen bases. Um, Again, I think Jose Reyes' stats are arguably better than him, but Jimmy Rollins should go in. I would like to see him get more love. Based on how the voting is going, I don't know if he's going to get in or not. Gary Sheffield did steroids, not going in. James Shields had an okay career until Bartolo Colon took him deep, and then he deep dived. He did not recover from that. Not going in. Chase Utley, I think, has a borderline case for the Hall of Fame, but as a Mets fan, and I'm also very biased, not going in. I think it hurts him that he didn't get to 2,000 career hits. He wasn't good enough long enough, and the Phillies' short run at success, the 5 years in which they won the division in a row, they didn't win a second World Series, and they didn't make the playoffs anytime after that. So it just kind of seems like a flash in the pan for that 5 year span for the Phillies. So I don't see him getting in, at least in the voting. Maybe down the line, a Veterans Committee will acknowledge him as a good second baseman. I think he was a good second baseman, borderline Hall of Famer, but probably not going in. Omar Vizquel, one of the greatest defensive shortstops of all time, gets no love, gets zero love from anyone for some reason. I believe he had a domestic. Someone claimed that he had some kind of domestic violence, so I don't know if he will go in on the voting. Maybe a Veterans Committee at some point. Probably not going in on the voting. Billy Wagner almost got in last year. he's definitely. I think he's going in this year. He's going to get the votes. Hall of Fame reliever for the Astros, the Mets, pitched for the Braves. Great relief pitcher. Should have been in a long time ago. He's going in. And last but not least on the list is my guy, David Wright, captain of the New York Mets. I should say former captain of the New York Mets. He doesn't play anymore. That's why he's on this ballot. He was on a track to be a Hall of Fame baseball player until spinal stenosis and a lot of other injuries piled up. But really, spinal stenosis ended up just ending his career. But he couldn't stay on the field. I think I saw something where he played like only in like 100 games or something after the age of 31. Like he couldn't stay on the field. He was injured. Spinal stenosis finally caught up with him. That was the narrowing of the spine. He just couldn't play. Like he was having to spend 3 to 4 hours of therapy and exercises before playing one game. So he just couldn't do it anymore. He was on track to be a Hall of Famer and be one of the best third basemen of all time, but injury stole that from me and many Mets fans. He's a guy I'm curious to see how many people will vote for him just out of like support or love or like, well, he was on track to be a Hall of Famer, or I'm a fan of his. He's not getting in, but I'm a fan of his. I'm going to vote for him. I think I'd be curious to see if he gets above 5% to stay on the ballot. Unfortunately, he's not going to go in. Um, I, I think there's not a lot of hope that he goes in. I hope that he goes in, but I don't see that happening based on other players. He really didn't have a Hall of Fame career just because of his career being cut short. But he was on track to have a Hall of Fame career before his injuries caught up with him. Now, I've just gone through the players, gave a little bit about them. I know this video is going on a little longer than some of you hoped, longer than I hoped, but I'm going to try and wrap it up soon so I can talk about the NFL playoffs. So I'm going to go through who I would vote for real quickly. So obviously, Adrian Beltrade, slam dunk. Todd Helton, as I mentioned before, I'd vote for him. So we got Adrian Beltrade, Todd Helton. I'd vote Torrey Hunter. I think he should go in. Great defensive outfielder. Andrew Jones, Joe Mauer. Then I would go for two guys I've said for years should go in. Actually, hold on a second. Three guys I've said for a while should go in: Jimmy Rollins, Omar Vizquel, and Billy Wagner. So that gets us to 8 of our 10 available slots, and that leaves me down to 4. Now, some of you might say, why not vote for Carlos Beltran? I think with the Astros scandal, I'm going to stay away from voting for him. If I had a vote for the moment, give him a few more years of waiting. But to me, that gets it down to 4 potential players that I would vote for, and there's going to be some bias in this. That's Matt Holliday, Brandon Phillips, Jose Reyes, and David Wright. Now, Jose Reyes and David Wright were former Mets. They actually played together. They were the left side of the infield for what was thought to be an up-and-coming Mets team, but they really only had that one moment in 2006 where they won the division and were one win away from going to the World Series. But that was not meant to be. If I personally had a vote, I would probably vote Jose Reyes and David Wright. I know that's biased, but it's my vote. A lot of voters have biased votes. And I would like to see David Wright get some recognition rather than just fall off the ballot after 1 year. He's also my favorite player, so a little hard to vote against my favorite player. But reasonably, if we're going based solely off of Hall of Fame talent, I would vote for man. I'd vote Jose Reyes. Definitely. I think his stats are too similar, I think, to Jimmy Rollins and arguably better in some ways to not put him in. And I would also put in Brandon Phillips. I think he's an extremely underrated second baseman that deserves to go in. I love Matt Holliday. I absolutely love him, and I would love for him to go in. But he's in reality probably more of a borderline Hall of Famer based on his position and his stats than Brandon Phillips. But Brandon Phillips doesn't quite have the name recognition or accolades that Matt Holliday does outside of four Gold Gloves, which he should have won more. But I would say my vote would be Adrian Beltre, Todd Helton, Torrey Hunter, Andrew Jones, Joe Mauer, Brandon Phillips, Jose Reyes, Jimmy Rollins, Omar Vizquel, and Billy Wagner. That would be my 10. I would stay away from the steroid guys. I don't think that any of the steroid users should be in the Hall of Fame. So I'm not going to vote for any of them. Yeah, so that's all I've got on the Hall of Fame ballot, and talked about that for 30 minutes. I'm gonna get a quick drink here. That's that's all I got for the Hall of Fame there. So now let's get into the NFL wild card. Hopefully, I won't talk about that for 30 minutes. So the NFL wild card this weekend, the Texans killed the Browns, absolutely demolished them. Um, Joe Flacco threw two pick sixes on consecutive drives. That just put the game out of reach there. The Chiefs beat the Dolphins 26-7. That wasn't really a game either. The Dolphins are just not the same team in colder weather, and it was -7 degrees there. They also were missing a lot of their defense in that game, so like they could not stop the Chiefs very well at all. They struggled to move the ball, and Kansas City just dominated the game. I know that the score of only 26-7 looks like it's much closer than the Texans Browns, but it was not really a close game at all. Um, then the Lions and Rams had a close game. The Lions won 24-23. As I said in my previous video, going over it, that I thought that the Lions would win a close game. They're just kind of due for a playoff win. First game at home in 30 years, playoff game at home in 30 years. They win the game. Um, I also predicted that the Chiefs would win. I thought it would be a little closer than that. And I thought the Browns would beat the Texans. I was very off on that. I was also very off on the Cowboys beating the Packers. I thought the Cowboys would win by about 10 points. The Packers demolished the Cowboys. They beat them 48-32. My Cowboys did not look good at all. That brings into question how good Dak Prescott is, which I've been saying for a while now, that I don't really buy into him being the franchise quarterback. I think he's an athletic Alex Smith. Mike McCarthy also is going to be questioned to death over this. Not performing well, Dan Quinn. A lot of Cowboys fans are calling for Jim Harbaugh or Bill Belichick, and I might be one of them. that was not a good game, and we need to make some major changes. That's one of the best shots we've had at just making it to the NFC title game in 28 years, and we came out laid an egg. So that was pretty bad. But moving on, and then so those were the Saturday and Sunday games, and yesterday on Martin Luther King Day. Happy Martin Luther King Day, everyone! A day late, but on Monday on MLK Day, the Bills game was postponed from Sunday. The extremely cold weather, a bunch of snow, postponed till Monday, where they beat the Steelers 31-17. The Steelers made it a little closer than I thought. I think I said the Bills would score 31. I don't think I said I think I said the Steelers would only score like 13 or something like that. Steelers just have no offense. They're really not that good of a team. There's a reason that they were the 7 seed. They're just not. They don't have an offense. They don't. They don't have an offense, and that's what hurts them in that is they just can't keep up with the Bills in terms of offense. The Bills are the better team. They have home field advantage, 2 seed, they win. And then last night, the Buccaneers beat the Eagles pretty soundly, 32-9. I believe late in that game it was only 16-9. Yeah, it was 16-9. It was 16-9 at half. So Then there was a safety, and then a long touchdown pass made it 25-9, and then a late touchdown pass made it 32-9. And Baker Mayfield has had a phenomenal year, and he's just absolutely proving that the Browns should not have should not have punted on him, should not have gotten rid of him. Obviously, a really good quarterback. I've said it all along. I said coming out of college, maybe had some questions of whether he's going to be good, his attitude and whatnot, and we maybe still have some questions about the attitude. I think he's matured a little bit now, but heck of a quarterback, definitely underrated. So after this week's matchups, next week's matchups for the playoffs, just go through who we've got. The Texans, after winning their game, are going to be facing the Ravens, the number 1 seed, who were on the bye. And the Packers, the number 7 seed, are going to be facing the 49ers, who have the 1 seed in the NFC. Those two games are on Saturday. The Texans and Ravens is at 3:30. The Packers and 49ers is at 7:15. First game's on ABC. Second game is on Fox. And then on Sunday we've got the Buccaneers going to play at the Lions, who have the 3 seed. And then we've got on Sunday, late Sunday afternoon, Sunday night, we've got the matchup everyone's wanted all along. We've got the Chiefs-Bills in Buffalo for the playoffs. Patrick Mahomes' first road playoff game. So this is how I think this weekend will go. I think the Ravens will beat the Texans. They're a 7.5-point favorite. I say they win 27-20, just under the 7.5. I think the Texans and CJ Stroud looks good. Looks really good. They're gonna play the Ravens good, but the Ravens have a better defense. CJ Stroud or the Texans are going to make a mistake. The Ravens are going to take advantage of it. Lamar Jackson is the more experienced veteran quarterback. He's going to show up when the Ravens need him most. They're going to win the game. They're going to find a way to win the game. The Packers 49ers, I've got the 49ers winning that game. I do think the Packers are going to make it close. Jordan Love has played phenomenal down the stretch. I say the 49ers win 35-28. Another 7-point margin of victory. Then on Sunday, I will say the Lions will win to go to their first NFC title game in a very long time. I don't know when the last time was, but I just know it's been a long time for the Lions. They're going to beat the Buccaneers 27-24 to advance to the NFC title game. And then the Bills and Chiefs, Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills are finally going to get over the Chiefs hump and go to the AFC title game, having for the first time in ever beaten the Chiefs in the playoffs with Patrick Mahomes. It's perhaps going to be that kind of run that Peyton Manning had, the year that they finally had home field over Tom Brady and the Patriots. It's kind of what it feels like to me, even though they're not the 1 seed. So I say the Bills win. Say they win 35-31. It's going to be my prediction. They're going to beat the Chiefs and advance to the AFC title game to take on the Ravens. Now, I think I said last week's video that I would have the Bills and 49ers in the Super Bowl. I believe that's what I said. If that happens, I kind of think the 49ers will win, even though I hope that the Bills win. As a Cowboys fan, I can't pull for the 49ers. But that's what this weekend looks like. The Bills are only a 3-point favorite, and the Lions are 6.5-point favorite. I didn't mention that. Also, I'm going to try and do this, if I can remember now, to go over things I missed in my last video. So, some things I didn't mention in my last video is that Bill Belichick retired from the Patriots, or they really mutually agreed to part ways. Mike Vrabel was fired from the Titans. I think that was a very bad decision, but there's a lot of rumors circulating that he might have wanted out. Pete Carroll was kind of soft fired, retired, and just moved from coaching to some kind of advisory role with the team. And the biggest of all there is Nick Saban retired from Alabama. That was huge. And then the head coach of Washington, I believe his name's Crable, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. He was the head coach of the Washington Huskies. Callan, I was way off on that. Callan DeBoer. Uh, he was the head coach of the Washington Huskies, just in the college football national championship. That Alabama swooped in, hired him. That was a huge hire for them, getting a guy that was just in the title game. I think that's a probably good hire for them. As someone who doesn't like Alabama, don't want to see it happen, but they're a Class A program for a reason. And then Washington just took Arizona's head coach. Let me see if I can. I'm struggling to remember their names. Jed Fish is who they hired. He was Arizona's head coach. They just hired him. I believe there was something else I was wanting to mention, but I can't think of what it was. If I do, it will be in the next video. But yeah, that's all I've got for this video. I know it's went a little longer than I hoped. But if you have any thoughts on who you want to go into the MLB Hall of Fame, who do you think's going to go in? How are the playoffs? How are the NFL playoffs going to go this next weekend? Who's going to win? Who's going to win the Super Bowl? And what are your thoughts so far of the NFL playoffs? All right, I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye bye.